There is a moment in Frida Kahlo's The Broken Column where your eye catches something most people scroll past. The tiny nails piercing her skin, each one a small violation, a precise point of agony. Look closer at any of her self-portraits and you'll find them. The medical corsets painted as armor, the bleeding hearts held in trembling hands, the spines that twist and fracture across canvas. Her art isn't metaphor, it's documentation. Every brush stroke is a medical record written in oil and defiance, a literal map of pain that most of us will never fully comprehend. We know Frida Kahlo as the icon with flowers in her hair, the bold eyebrows, the revolutionary who loved Diego Rivera through storms. We celebrate her as a feminist pioneer, a surrealist, and a symbol of Mexican pride. But we often miss what she was screaming at us through every painting. She was drowning in physical torment that began with a bus accident at 18 and never stopped. 32 surgeries, a spine that crumbled, a body that betrayed her daily, chronic pain that would have broken most people by their 20s. Her self-portraits weren't about vanity or even traditional expression. They were survival. When your body becomes a prison, when doctors can't fix you and morphine only dulls the edges, you paint yourself to prove you still exist. She documented her miscarriages, her surgical scars, her deteriorating spine, her amputated leg, not for shock value, but because making the invisible visible was the only way she could breathe. Each canvas was a conversation with a body that hurt her, a negotiation with pain that never gave her a day off. These paintings are evidence of a spirit that refused to disappear even when her flesh was failing. If you've ever lived with invisible pain, if you've ever needed to make someone understand what they can't see, Frida's work isn't historical, it's a mirror. Let's dive in and witness how one woman transformed her suffering into the most honest art ever created, and discover why her story matters more now than ever. On the 17th September 1925, the collision between the bus and the streetcar lasted seconds, but the sound of splintering wood and metal tearing through flesh echoed for the rest of Frida Kahlo's life. A wooden handrail impaled her pelvis, her spine fractured in 3 places, her collarbone snapped, her ribs broke, and her right leg shattered into 11 pieces. She was 18 years old. The silence that followed the crash was the sound of her future collapsing. Doctors pulled the handrail from her body, but the damage was permanent. Her spine would never properly heal. Her pelvis would never carry a child. The girl who wanted to study medicine became a lifelong patient instead. Her body transformed into a site of endless repair that never quite worked. Chronic pain wasn't an occasional visitor, it was the air she breathed, the constant harm beneath every moment. Over the next 3 decades, she endured at least 32 surgeries, each one promising relief that rarely came. Her spine continued to deteriorate despite the operations, despite the corsets that tried to hold the crumbling vertebrae in place. She wore plaster casts, leather braces, steel corsets that dug into her ribs and made breathing feel like work. She suffered multiple miscarriages because her damaged pelvis couldn't sustain a pregnancy, each loss carving out a piece of her hope. This relentless physical torment seeped into her art in ways both obvious and subtle. The deep crimsons and dark purples that dominate her canvases weren't just aesthetic choices. They were the colors of internal bleeding, of bruised flesh, of wounds that wouldn't close. The roots and thorns that wrapped around her painted body reflected the sensation of nerves misfiring and of being trapped inside skin that hurt. Her rigid frontal postures in so many self-portraits weren't stylistic preference, they were necessity. Turning her torso even slightly sent shockwaves of pain through her spine. So she painted herself the only way she could comfortably sit, which was straight on, locked in place, meeting your eyes with defiance born from immobility. The anatomical precision in her paintings is a metaphor. In The Broken Column, that iconic pillar splitting her body in half is her spine exactly as it felt, an ancient stone crumbling under impossible weight and holding nothing together. The nails piercing her skin throughout the painting, a nerve pain made visible. The sensation of being stabbed from within, given form so that someone and anyone might understand what living in her body actually meant. When she painted Henry Ford Hospital after her 1932 miscarriage, she didn't soften the imagery. She showed herself hemorrhaging on hospital bed, umbilical cords floating in space connected to a fetus, and a broken pelvis together with medical instruments. She made the private horror public because silence felt like erasure. The orthopedic corsets appear throughout her work, sometimes painted with flowers and decorations, transforming her devices meant to confine her into symbols of resilience. She depicted her withering right leg, her surgical scars, her open spine, not to shock viewers, but to document what doctors dismissed and what morphine couldn't touch. By painting the medical reality of her existence with brutal honesty, Frida took ownership of a body that betrayed her daily. Each canvas became proof that pain couldn't silence her, that she could stare directly into her own physical destruction and transform it into something that would outlast the suffering itself. Diego Rivera didn't just break Frida's heart, he shattered it repeatedly, methodically, with an almost calculated cruelty that turned their marriage into a second accident she never recovered from. His affairs were legion, but the betrayal with her younger sister Christina in 1934 carved out something fundamental in Frida. The man she called her second catastrophe, the artist she admired beyond reason, had crossed a line that redefined what pain could feel like. He slept with her friends, her students, strangers whose name she never learned. Each infidelity was a small death, and yet she stayed, left, remarried him, and stayed again because loving Diego was as involuntary as breathing. This emotional carnage flooded her canvases. A few small nips from 1935 shows a murdered woman on a bed, stabbed repeatedly by her lover, blood spattering even the frame itself. The title came from a real murder case where the killer told police he'd only given his victim a few small nips, but Frida was painting her own butchering. The way betrayal felt like being stabbed 20 times while someone called it love. Her most productive periods often followed Diego's worst betrayals. The agony had to go somewhere, and the canvas became the only safe space to bleed. Loneliness saturates her work like humidity. Even in paintings where she includes Diego, there's a vast emotional distance, an unbridgeable gap between their bodies. In The Two Fridas, she paints herself twice, holding her own hand because no one else would hold it the way she needed. One Frida's heart is exposed and broken, connected by a vein to the other Frida's intact heart, but blood drips onto her white dress and won't stop. She's alone with herself, and even that companionship draws blood. The broken column in her most famous self-portrait isn't just her spine, it's structural isolation made visible. the experience of being fundamentally unsupported and of standing alone while everything inside you crumbles. The roots that entangle her body in the paintings like roots simultaneously anchor and suffocate her, reflecting the paradox of needing connection while feeling trapped by it. She painted herself in empty landscapes, in barren rooms, in beds that looked like rafts floating in nothing. The yearning for genuine connection breathed through her every self-portrait. This desperate wish to be truly seen and held by someone who wouldn't betray or abandon her, even as her life proved that wish mostly went unanswered. Living with unrelenting physical pain doesn't just hurt your body, it dismantles your mind. Frida's letters reveal someone battling profound depression, someone who frequently contemplated suicide, who wrote about wanting her suffering to end in the only permanent way available. The intersection of chronic pain and mental anguish created a feedback loop where physical agony amplified emotional despair, which in turn made the painting feel more unbearable. She spent months bedridden, immobilized in casts, unable to walk or move or exist as anything beyond a broken thing in bed. The psychological toll of watching your body deteriorate despite dozens of surgeries, of losing babies your damaged pelvis couldn't carry, and of needing Diego even as he destroyed you, completely manifested in paintings filled with weeping figures and exposed organs and bodies split in two. Her self-portraits became a form of survival, a way to externalize the internal chaos before it consumed her entirely. Painting herself was both documentation and therapy, a method of asserting existence when everything in her life suggested she should simply disappear. Each canvas functioned as evidence that she was still here, still feeling, and still refusing to be erased by pain or heartbreak or the cruelty of a body and marriage that kept failing her. The act of painting gave her control in a life defined by hopelessness, transforming her trauma into something she could hold, manipulate, and ultimately share with a world that might finally understand what it cost her to keep living. The Broken Column from 1944 is an autopsy of a living woman. Frida stands split open down the middle, her torso held together only by a white medical corset that looks more like a straitjacket than support. Inside her chest cavity, where organs should be, stands an ionic column fractured in multiple places, barely holding up the weight of her existence. This isn't artistic abstraction. This is exactly how her spine felt after nearly 2 decades of failed surgeries and progressive deterioration. The nails driven into her flesh across her entire body and decoration. They map the geography of nerve pain, the sensation of being pierced from the inside out that no morphindos could fully silence. The barren landscape behind her stretches endlessly, emphasizing her isolation in this suffering. The white cloth around her hips references both classical sculpture and surgical draping, turning her broken body into something between art object and medical specimen. She stands alone with her pain made visible, and the column continues cracking. In Henry Ford Hospital, painted in 1932 after her second miscarriage, Frida lies hemorrhaging on a hospital bed that floats in an industrial wasteland. 6 umbilical cords extend from her hand like the strings of a puppet master, but she controls nothing. Each cord connects to a symbol of her loss. A male fetus in fetal position, representing the son she couldn't carry. A snail symbolizing the excruciating slowness of the miscarriage. An orchid Diego brought to the hospital that felt like a hollow gesture, a fractured pelvis showing exactly what made pregnancy invisible, and medical equipment that failed to save anything. The Ford factories in the distant background weren't random. Henry Ford's assembly line represented efficient production, mechanical reproduction, and the opposite of Frida's body that couldn't manufacture the one thing she desperately wanted to create. The red blood pooling beneath her on white sheets documents what hospitals try to hide, what women are told not to discuss. She painted her biological failure with medical precision because vague sadness couldn't capture what it felt like to lose a wanted child for the third time. The two Fridas from 1939 shows her split in two, holding her own hand in an empty sky. The Frida on the left wears a European-style wedding dress with her heart fully exposed and anatomically detailed, an artery cut and bleeding uncontrollably on her lap. She holds a surgical forceps, trying to stop the hemorrhage but can't. The Frida on the right wears traditional Tewana clothing Diego loved, her heart intact and connected by a visible vein to the bleeding Frida. In her hand, she holds a small portrait of Diego as a child. Frida painted this during their divorce, and the symbolism is surgical in its clarity. The European Frida represents who she became, trying to please Diego, now abandoned and bleeding out. The Mexican Frida holds onto the memory of loving him, her heart still whole because that version of her predates the damage. The shared circulatory system between the two Fridas shows that you cannot separate your broken self from your intact self. They're both you, both bleeding, both holding on. The storm clouds gathering behind them aren't metaphorical, they are the emotional weather of heartbreak made visible. These symbols extend beyond Frida's personal anguish into something universal. The monkey that appears in multiple self-portraits, often attributed to maternal longing after her miscarriages, also represents the companion that stays when humans abandon you. The thorns in self-portrait with thorn necklace and hummingbird aren't just about Diego's betrayals, they're about how love itself can wound, how closeness draws blood, how beauty and pain grow from the same soil. The roots that burst from the body in roots simultaneously anchor her to earth and imprison her, capturing the paradox of needing stability while feeling trapped by your circumstances. The hummingbird hanging dead from her thorn necklace represent hope that has ceased moving and dreams that have suffocated. When she paints herself with a broken spine, she's speaking for everyone whose body has betrayed them. When she shows her bleeding heart exposed to the world, she's documenting what heartbreak actually looks like, stripped of poetry. When she splits herself in two, she's illustrating the psychological fracture that trauma creates, the before and after self that can never fully integrate. Her symbolism transforms private devastation into a visual language that anyone who has suffered can read. The broken column is every chronic illness that destroys from within. The hemorrhaging bed is every loss that medicine couldn't prevent. The two selves holding hands is every person who has tried to comfort the wounded parts of themselves because no one else could reach them. Frida's genius wasn't just in painting her pain, it was in finding the exact images that would make her invisible wounds visible to anyone who looked closely enough to see their own suffering reflected back. Thank you for watching. Until the next one.